Today, we're looking at a purple ink from Monteverde Purple Mist. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around to the part you're most interested in. Or, if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You could also follow me on Instagram, and if you like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then inked up this Pilot Metropolitan with a 1.0 stub, wrote with it for a day, and took my notes for this video. I standardized my first writing sample by using Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper on all of the tests that I do. I do use other papers, and some of those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have some very nice shading. The extra fine is super light with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading throughout. It can't help it with it being so light here. 5 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading. 7 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us color variation, and we do get it in the writing. This looks much better than it did before. Tomoe River. No bleeding. Light Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have peppering of dark letters throughout. The extra fine is a little bit darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 11 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both do show a little bit of color variation, but it's not happening in the writing. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 with no feather spread, halo sheen, and peppering of darker spots within the letters. Extra fine is darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. A very nice accenting in its shading here. Quite a bit in and out of dark letters. This is nice. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. That same very nice shading. I wish overall its tone was a little darker, but very nice right here. 9 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both do show good color variation, and we do get it in the writing. I agree with Vita that we learn a lot when we do multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and put it in the water immediately. We see a very light purple that works its way up, which I would be surprised if it was dark, but at the top of that purple, really surprising, is this kind of mint green that I was not expecting. The one on the right that I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. This is an odd chromatography because what I'm seeing is a lot more of that ink actually pushed up. There's more of the purple gathered at the top than in the original one. And we still see that very minty green at the top. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it holds together okay enough. It fades even more. Being such a light ink, anything that would cause it to fade, I would not use it in a note-taking situation if I needed to go back and highlight. Now that's not surprising considering its chromatographies and what happens with water, which is completely reactivating and lifting it. Look at the bottom part of that dot. You start to see the white of the paper coming through. Water was all that was needed to clean this from my pen. Pen Flush does everything that water does, just a little bit faster. There's a lot of the white of the paper coming through, even though you're not going to need to use Flush. 1/3 bleach solution, which there is no need to use, absolutely obliterates it. I test ink viscosity with a tilt test that I'll link somewhere. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Monteverde's Purple Mist has a viscosity of 2.65, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Monteverde's Purple Mist has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making this a fast drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Monteverde's Purple Mist, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice brown. I chose Private Reserve's Sepia. The second writing sample is done on Northbook's Nemesine and Leuchtturm 1917 paper. Here we're looking at Northbook's paper. Now we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It has spots of darker in the writing, so I guess we do get little pepperings of shading in there. The extra fine is a lot darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. Medium is lighter than the extra fine, not as light as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some nice peppering of dark colors in there with 1 second to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation, although the medium does get some pepperings of darker colors. Well, how about Nemesine paper, one of my favorites of all time, with no bleeding, no ghosting. Wish the price of this would come down. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, light peppering of shading, light peppering. Don't over pepper it because it's going to cook too much. But you do see some darker spots occur. Extra fine is just a hair darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, still a very light peppering of shading throughout, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a hair darker, just a hair darker than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, that same peppering of shading throughout with 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show good color variation left to right, and we do get it in the peppering. Wonder what I'm going to make for dinner. Last up is Leuchtturm 1917 paper with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and a very light peppering of shading. Extra fine is quite a bit darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer moments of shading. I would even call it peppering. There's moments of shading. Like the word the is much darker than brown. So there's that. 5 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer the peppering of shading. Peppers back in season. 7 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the medium is showing some color variation. The extra fine doesn't really. We get tiny bits in the writing of the extra fine, much better in the medium. And that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Monteverde's Purple Mist? This is a nice, light, dusty purple that if that's what appeals to you, that's fantastic, and this is going to be great. But for me, I frequently found the tone just a little bit too light for my liking. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I found that dry pens really made it too light for me to use. But when I used a wet medium, what I found is that it got quite a bit darker, more pleasant, easier to read comfortably on the page, and it gave little bits of shading, which I enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you, if you enjoyed it, subscribe. Thanks for watching.